My name is Helen Sanders, and I never imagined that at 63, after burying the man I loved for 4 decades, I would find myself pressed flat against the inside of my own front door, afraid to breathe too loudly. The cold brass of the doorknob dug into my palm as I leaned closer to the crack, watching shadows move across the polished floor of the foyer. A woman's voice rang out, cheerful and falsely confident, and my stomach twisted because it belonged to my daughter-in-law, Lydia. Through the small screen of the security camera mounted in the hallway, I saw her sweep her arm with a flourish, pointing out the crown molding and the wide staircase, as if she had built this house herself. Behind her, 2 strangers wandered, nodding politely, carrying notebooks. Lydia was selling them a dream, but it wasn't hers to sell. It was mine. Every brick, every beam, every dollar that had gone into this house had come from me. I bit my lips so hard it almost bled, fighting the urge to burst through the door and scream. How dare she parade strangers through my home? How dare she treat what I had kept secret, what I had worked for, as though it were her inheritance already carved into stone? My heart pounded against my ribs, equal parts rage and disbelief. One of the men asked if the master bedroom faced the backyard, and Lydia laughed lightly, promising to show them in a moment. That laugh chilled me more than winter air. She wasn't just poking around, she was negotiating, planning, plotting. I pressed the lock button on my phone, freezing the camera feed before my trembling hand could drop it. In that instant, I realized the danger wasn't a burglar breaking in from outside. The real trespasser was already inside, smiling sweetly, wearing the title of family. I didn't know then how far Lydia was willing to go, but I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I could no longer stay silent. When the strangers finally left and Lydia's car pulled away from the driveway, I closed the door and sank against it, my knees weak. The silence of the house wrapped around me, but it wasn't comforting. It felt like the echo of a betrayal I hadn't yet named out loud. I walked slowly through the wide hall, my hand brushing the railing of the staircase I had chosen, the one I'd imagined my grandchildren climbing someday. 6 weeks earlier, when I first stepped inside this house, I had felt something I hadn't felt since my husband passed, a flicker of hope. The hardwood floors gleamed in the sunlight. The backyard opened into a garden that begged for summer barbecues, and there was even a small library tucked behind the living room. I told myself this could be our new beginning. I had imagined inviting Michael and Lydia over, revealing the surprise with a smile, watching their eyes widen as they realized this was not just any house. It was meant for them. I thought of the insurance check I had tucked away after the funeral, the money I hadn't touched until now. I used it to pay for this place in full. No mortgage, no strings. It was my final gift, my way of ensuring my son and his family had security I could no longer provide with my own 2 hands. I wanted to see them happy, to see Michael rebuild after the loss of his father, to give Lydia a chance to feel at home with us, not like an outsider. But as I stood there, in the quiet, I couldn't ignore the bitter taste rising in my throat. What I had meant as a gift was already being twisted into something else. Lydia hadn't walked through those doors with gratitude in her eyes. She had walked in with calculation. She had taken measurements with her gaze, mentally rearranging walls and rooms, already claiming pieces of this house as hers. I sat on the edge of the stairs and pressed my face into my hands. I told myself maybe I was imagining it, maybe grief had sharpened my suspicion too much, yet deep inside, a seed of doubt had already taken root, and I knew it wouldn't stop growing. The first time I showed Michael and Lydia the house, I was nearly bursting with anticipation. I had rehearsed the moment in my head a dozen times. I imagined Michael's jaw dropping, imagined Lydia clasping her hands together in delight, imagined the three of us standing in the living room, laughing, the heaviness of the past few years lifting just a little. Instead, the air shifted almost as soon as we walked inside. Michael's eyes lit up, yes, but with the stunned kind of disbelief that comes when life hands you something you never expected. Lydia, on the other hand, didn't look surprised at all. She looked like she had been waiting for this, like she had known it was coming. She drifted from room to room with the confidence of a realtor. In the kitchen, she ran her hand along the marble counters, nodding as if approving a purchase she had already made. Upstairs, she opened the door to the master suite and let out a satisfied little hum. "This will be perfect for us," she said casually, as though the house had already been deeded in her name. I blinked at her. "For you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't even hesitate. "Of course. Mom and Dad can finally have their own place nearby. There's enough space for them on the first floor. We'll just set up the guest bedroom for you. Helen. It's small, but it should work fine." Her tone was smooth, like she was doing me a favor. My chest tightened. Michael stood by the window, his face caught between confusion and embarrassment. He rubbed the back of his neck, but said nothing. I forced a smile, though it felt like my lips might crack. "That's one way to think about it," I murmured. The rest of the tour blurred together. Lydia measured walls with her eyes, talked about where to put her parents' furniture, speculated about converting the library into a playroom. She was building a life here brick by brick, and every sentence pushed me further to the margins. By the time we stepped back outside, I felt the chill of winter settle deep into my bones. What I had pictured as a gift was quickly becoming a battleground, and Lydia was already planting her flag. A week after that first visit, Lydia called me in the evening. Her voice was bright, almost cheerful, but there was an edge to it, the kind that sets your teeth on edge even when you can't name why. "Helen," she said, "we need to move quickly on the house. The market is hot, and if you don't secure it now, we could lose it. Michael and I have been talking, and we think it's best to put down the money in full. Cash is the only way these days." I sat at my kitchen table, the steam from my tea curling in the air. "The house is already paid for," I said carefully. "There's no mortgage. No one is waiting in line behind us." She laughed lightly, as though I were a child who didn't understand. "Oh, but there is. The realtor told us another couple is interested. They're ready to move in fast. Well, if you don't sign things over, they might swoop in." The words pricked at me, but what hurt more was Michael's voice in the background, urging her on. He picked up the phone a moment later. "Mom, Lydia's right. This is a rare chance. If you hesitate, we could lose everything. Just let us handle it. We'll take care of the details." I wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the boy I had raised into a man, but something about the urgency felt wrong. Why would Lydia be the one relaying what the realtor supposedly said? Why did Michael sound rehearsed, like he'd been coached? I told them I needed time, but Lydia pushed harder. "Time is exactly what we don't have. If you really want this house for us, you'll sign it over now. Think of the baby we'll have someday. Helen, think of the family we could build here." Her words hung heavy, weaving guilt and promise into the same net. I ended the call with my hands shaking, staring at the untouched tea gone cold in front of me. That night I lay awake, the silence of my bedroom pressing in. If this was supposed to be a gift, why did it feel like a debt I was being forced to pay? A few days later, I stopped by the new house to drop off some paint samples. The winter sun was already sliding low, and the air bit at my cheeks as I fumbled with my keys. But when I slid mine into the lock, something was off. The key wouldn't turn smoothly. It caught, as though the lock had been tampered with. I froze. My mind raced. Had I used the wrong key? No, I knew the weight of my own set. I tried again, harder this time, and finally forced the door open. Inside. Everything looked untouched at first glance. The smell of fresh paint still hung in the air, but when I walked into the kitchen, I saw something on the counter, a glossy brochure from a real estate agency. My stomach dropped. I picked it up with trembling fingers. On the front was a photo of my house, not just the exterior shot I had seen online when I bought it. This was new, professional, staged with furniture that wasn't mine. Someone had been here. Someone had gone so far as to list my house as if it were theirs to sell. The only people who knew about the place were Michael and Lydia. And suddenly, the sticky way the key had resisted made terrible sense. Lydia had gotten her hands on another copy. Somehow, she had managed to get a key cut and she hadn't even tried to hide it. I called the locksmith that same night. He arrived bundled in a heavy coat, his breath puffing white clouds as he swapped out the locks on every door. "Best to change them all," he said, shaking his head when I explained. "You can't be too careful, ma'am." When he left, I walked through the house again, room by room, touching the new keys in my pocket like they were a lifeline. Then I opened the small box that held the new security cameras I had bought weeks earlier but never installed. My husband had always handled things like this, but he wasn't here anymore. It was my job now. By midnight, I was standing on a step stool, screwing in the final camera above the living room. I looked at the tiny blinking red light and whispered, "Watch for me." For the first time since the funeral, I felt like I had taken a piece of control back. The footage came through just 2 days later. I had been sipping coffee at my kitchen table when the notification buzzed on my phone. I opened the app, and there she was, Lydia, standing in the foyer again, jangling a set of keys I had never given her. Beside her was a man I didn't recognize, tall and serious, clipboard in hand. They walked from room to room as if they were conducting business. That was the last straw. I called Michael and told him to meet me at the house that evening. He sounded puzzled, but agreed. When he and Lydia arrived, I was already inside, waiting in the living room with the camera footage queued up on the television. "Mom, what's going on?" Michael asked, glancing around nervously. I picked up the remote and pressed play. The screen flickered to life, and Lydia's face filled the room. She froze, her hand tightening around her purse strap. Michael's mouth fell open as the recording showed her unlocking the door, leading the man inside, talking fast and confident. I let the video run until there was no denying it. Then I turned to them. "This is my house," I said firmly. "I paid for it. My name is the only one on the deed. And you," I pointed at Lydia, my hand shaking with anger, "you broke in here, lied to me, and tried to sell what doesn't belong to you." Michael looked from me to Lydia, his face pale. "Lydia, tell me this isn't what it looks like." She forced a laugh, brittle and sharp. "Helen, you've misunderstood. I wasn't selling the house. I was just exploring options, making sure everything was in order. You know how complicated real estate can be." "Complicated?" My voice cracked. "Complicated is grief. Complicated is trying to surprise my son with a gift only to discover his wife is carving me out of it." Michael ran a hand through his hair, his voice low and shaken. "Lydia, did you really do this?" She said nothing, only tightened her jaw. And in that silence, the truth echoed louder than any excuse. Lydia finally broke her silence with a sharp inhale, as though she had rehearsed this moment in her head. She set her purse down and folded her hands neatly on the counter, her expression calm, calculated. "Helen," she began, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. You have to understand. I wasn't trying to steal anything. I was trying to protect you. Houses like this can be a burden if they're in the wrong name. If something happens, if you ever need long-term care, the government could take it. Nursing homes cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you really want everything you worked for to vanish into medical bills? Her words dripped with concern, but her eyes betrayed her, too sharp, too watchful. I crossed my arms. Protect me? By sneaking around behind my back? By pretending this house was yours? She leaned forward, lowering her voice as if we were co-conspirators. Listen, if we transfer the title into Michael's and my name, it won't be counted against you. It's smarter for taxes, smarter for the future. Think of the baby we'll have someday. Don't you want your grandchild to grow up in a secure home, free from all those financial risks? Michael's head shot up. Lydia, he started, but she pressed a hand against his arm to silence him. I felt the heat rise in my chest. This wasn't concern for me. This was a pitch. A carefully wrapped sales pitch designed to make theft sound noble. I already thought of the future, I said, my voice steady now. That's why I bought this house in the first place. I paid for it outright. No mortgage, no lien, no tricks. I don't need you drawing up schemes to protect me from imaginary dangers. Her smile flickered, but she didn't back down. You're being emotional. This is just smart planning. If you loved us, you'd trust us with it. For the first time, I felt the last thread of patience snap. Love, she said, but what she really meant was control. And in that moment, I knew the battle lines were drawn. 2 nights later, Lydia showed up at my door alone. It was late, the porch light casting her face in a pale glow. She clutched her coat tight around her, eyes red as if she had been crying for hours. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat at my kitchen table, twisting a tissue in her hands. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, in a voice just above a whisper, she said, I'm pregnant. The words hit me like a stone in the chest. My first instinct was joy. My son's child, my grandchild. But the way she said it, timed and deliberate, made me feel like it was less of a celebration and more of a weapon placed carefully on the table between us. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she leaned closer. Helen, I didn't want to use this to persuade you, but I can't hold it in anymore. This baby needs stability. We need the house in our name, not yours. What if something happens to you? What if the paperwork gets messy? Don't you want your grandchild to have a safe, permanent home? I gripped my mug so tightly my knuckles whitened. I wanted to believe her vulnerability, but I could still hear the echo of her laugh in my house, selling it off to strangers. Lydia, I said slowly, being pregnant doesn't give you the right to take what isn't yours. She flinched, dabbing at her eyes. You think I'm selfish, but I'm trying to build a future for your son and our child. You can still be a part of it. Your little guest room will always be waiting. The tissue tore in her hands, flimsy against the strength of her grip. She looked at me like she expected me to break, to surrender. But all I felt was a strange clarity. My grandchild deserved love. Yes, but love rooted in truth, not manipulation. I stood, pulling my coat from the chair. This conversation is over. If you want to be a mother, start by learning what honesty looks like. Her face hardened, the tears drying as quickly as they had come. The following week, I sat in the conference room of my attorney's office with Michael across from me. He looked uneasy, his hands clasped tightly, eyes darting between me and the folder that lay on the polished oak table. Lydia wasn't there. This meeting was between mother and son. My attorney, Mr. Clark, opened the folder and slid a set of documents across to Michael. "Your mother owns the house outright," he said plainly. "Her name alone is on the deed. The attempts to transfer ownership without her consent and the unauthorized use of keys fall under elder financial abuse in this state." Michael's face drained of color. "Elder abuse? No, that can't be," I interrupted softly. "It can. And it is." The cameras recorded Lydia leading strangers through my home, pretending to be the owner. The locksmith confirmed someone else had a key, and your own words on the phone, pressuring me to sign things over, those all build a picture. Michael, a picture I never wanted to see. He buried his face in his hands, his voice muffled. "She told me it was to save money. She said it was the only way to keep the house safe. She lied," I said gently but firmly. "And you believed her. I don't fault you for wanting to trust your wife, but you let that trust blind you to the truth. This wasn't about protecting me. It was about control." Mr. Clark leaned forward. "Helen has every right to pursue charges. At the very least, a restraining order could be filed. But she's chosen to speak with you first. You need to decide which side of this you're standing on." The room was quiet except for the hum of the heater. Michael lifted his head, eyes glassy. "Mom, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know she went that far." I reached across the table, covering his clenched fists with my hand. "Then open your eyes now, because if you keep ignoring what she's doing, you'll lose more than a house. You'll lose me." He swallowed hard, and for the first time, I saw the boy I raised peeking through the man weighed down by someone else's schemes. After that meeting, the line was drawn. I filed a formal notice through my attorney that the house would remain solely in my name, and any attempt to interfere again would result in legal action. Mr. Clark also made it clear that Lydia's actions could carry consequences: trespassing, fraud, even elder abuse. Michael moved back into our old family home for a while. He said he needed space to think, and I could see the shame written all over him. For the first time, he stopped defending Lydia. Instead, he started asking questions about therapy, about rebuilding trust, about how to repair what had been cracked between us. It was a fragile step, but it was his. Lydia, on the other hand, pulled away. She sent long texts full of half apologies and excuses, but I didn't respond. I no longer needed her explanations. The silence between us was heavy, but it was honest, and I preferred that to the sugar-coated lies she had offered before. At night, I walked through the rooms of the house alone. The locks clicked solidly under my key. The cameras blinked quietly in the corners. And for the first time in months, I felt the space was truly mine. Not because I wanted to keep everyone out forever, but because I had finally reclaimed the right to decide who came in. The house wasn't just walls and windows anymore. It had become a boundary, a reminder that love without respect is no gift at all. Spring came early that year, and I hosted my first dinner with the neighbors in the backyard. The grill smoked, children laughed, and for the first time in months, the house felt alive in the way I had always imagined. Michael joined us quietly, carrying dessert, his eyes heavy but softer than before. I stood on the porch, watching lanterns sway in the evening breeze. The house was still mine, but more than that, it had become a symbol of survival. Family could wound you, yes, but with clear boundaries, you could heal, too. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.